Okay, we're back out at the razor today. I got something new in. In one of the last videos you could see that I moved the fire extinguisher mount that was here up to there so I could mount my GoPro mount. I basically oriented that fire extinguisher mount down, and one of the things I realized from looking at a lot of the current posts and a lot of the razor forums and on Facebook was a lot of people are looking for fire extinguisher mounts. I've done a lot of experimenting, and I have actually purchased this one over here. It's from Linear Machine, and I'm going to do an unboxing and pretty much a complete review of this. I bought this retail. This is how it comes. It comes in a priority mailbox in just a couple of days. And the thing I like about it is it mounts directly to the 1 3/4 roll bar, and it also fits a standard fire extinguisher, one that you can find at Lowe's. So all of this combined up together is about $120. It's the biggest complaint that people have about fire extinguisher mounts is rattling. I've never had that rattle, no matter what orientation it's got. And I'll get into it when I pull it out of the box here. And basically what they've done is they've got a pin that slides in, and there's a little rubber bushing. And that basically always keeps constant pressure out so that it doesn't rattle. And it's real easy to get off. Holds the fire extinguisher really well, and I just like it. It's a billet piece. It appears to be CNC machined. Yes, there is a CNC mill directly behind me. Yes, I could make one of these, but I can't make one for what they're selling for. You know, I think they're around 90 bucks, 103 after taxes. Folks, you can't beat that. Again, this is not a paid advertisement. I paid retail for this. I bought it on eBay just like everybody else. It's just a really good product, and I thought I'd mention it. I haven't seen it anywhere else. I just happened along it on eBay one day and decided to give it a try, and that's where I got that one out. So we're going to unbox this here. Like I said before, it's just standard United States Postal Service, and as you can see, it arrived to me in good shape. These things are not very heavy. Packaging, I think this came as the same as the last one. Just comes with some foam. It's well packaged, and then a Ziploc bag. They have several different colors, and as you can see, this one's pretty much pre-assembled, other than the top loop for the fire extinguisher. They have a bunch of different colors. I got black. It's just anodized aluminum. And it's just a really nice piece. I mean, if I were to machine this, this is how I would make it. Basically, you have 3 hoops that are cap screwed onto the main body. Then you have 2 main hoops. All of it disassembles. It does come assembled. Let me put the sharp object away there before I test to see how sharp my knife is. The pen has a little bit of pressure, and mainly that's because of this rubber bushing. I don't know if that's going to come through on camera, but there's a little rubber bushing in there. And basically the way this works is this little piece slides into this slot. And it's a pretty tight fit, which is what you want for anti-rattle. And then once you put the pen in, you can hear these rattling back here, but there's no rattle. I mean, it is really tight in there and not going to cause any noise. And then once you tighten these down, you won't hear any rattle either. So I'm going to go ahead and install this. Pretty much it's only one tool to install. You need a 4mm hex wrench. And if this is like the last one, the rings do fit a little tight. You have to really, be careful and work on them. You can put a little bit of Dawn dishwashing detergent on it to help slide it on. I'm not really worried about mine. My roll bars are powder coated, and they won't have any scratches on them anyway. But if you've got sprayed roll bars or something like that, you may want to consider either preparing to respray or being real careful when you slide these rings on. And just little details on this. The cap screws are oriented in a fashion that you can actually unscrew them all as long as you don't turn it upside down and keep everything, all the bolts where they're supposed to go. which is just another nice touch. They could have made this a lot cheaper and made that part of the body a lot thinner. But it's a fairly thick piece of aluminum that they're machining this out of. The pin, as best I can tell, that's at the rear is steel. And this is what the halves look like. And this thing's really light. I mean, I don't know the exact weight on it, but I mean it's maybe a pound or two. It's not very heavy. The fire extinguisher is considerably heavier than the mount is. And you can kind of slide these around on the roll bar a little bit, but you want to basically have it where you want it when you install it. And the best way I've found to do it is actually, as you can see, all the bolts fit through. And I'm just going to kind of set it up on the roll bar where I want it. I'm going to be pretty particular about its mounting. I want it angled in and down, and I'll mount the fire extinguisher at the same height. And basically that's because I'm trying to prevent anything from getting caught. So I've actually curved the fire extinguisher inward so that the side profile, it's not any thicker. And this allows you to do that the way the mount's made. You can see the roll bar area center. So the further you go this way, it reduces the profile on the side of the razor. And I'm just going to eyeball it. I want the pin to the top. I've got a little bit, a good reference point is this seat belt stud is still there. So I'm just going to put this, kind of above that seat belt stud. And these are the same as any other U-shaped mounting options. Basically, you want to make sure that you're applying equal force. You don't want one side of the clamp to be really tight and the other side to be loose. And once we get it started here, it'll kind of hang up there by itself. And this is aluminum. You want to be really careful about stripping out threads. It's just common sense stuff. You don't want to tighten it up all the way. Basically, I want to get all these in and not even really snug, just kind of leave it loose where it still hangs there. And then I'll actually move it around for final positioning. In case anybody's wondering, there is something engraved on the side of these. It looks like it's cursive windfall maybe. I can't really relate that to the brand because the only thing I know these by is linear machines on eBay. I don't know that I'll put a link because I think it moves around when they're selling them or when they're not selling them. But if you go onto eBay and type in linear machines or 1 3/4 inch roll bar fire extinguisher mount, you'll be able to find them pretty easy. You can kind of see it, maybe you can see, but basically the mount is really it's really close on the size. This is a well machined part. I don't know if you can see the finish there, but they've got chamfers on everything, and it looks like all the threads have been roll formed. If you watch one of my machining videos, the Balix thread forming tap, that's more than likely what they used. And what that gives you is a really good thread, really strong thread. Okay, now that we've got this mounted, it'll kind of wiggle around. I can move it a little bit up and down. This is going to limit my travel. I'm going to go over here and grab the fire extinguisher. This is a fire extinguisher from Lowe's. My local Lowe's here sells these by the pallet if you want them. Real easy to find, real easy to get. I'll put an Amazon link for this particular model because I know it fits. You throw away most of the stuff that comes in the box except for the fire extinguisher. It does come with a mounting bracket for like home use or what have you. This fire extinguisher, let's see here if it actually says on the outside. It's an ABC rated fire extinguisher. It pretty much you can use it on any fire, including a conductive fire, fuel fire, that kind of thing. So it comes with a couple things in the box. You can hear some stuff jiggling around. That's just the mounts and screws. I'm going to set those off to the side because the only thing we really want is a fire extinguisher. Now on these fire extinguishers, you want to leave the tag on. If you do need to use it, that'll break off easy, and then there's an additional pin. If you end up having to take this pin out and not use the extinguisher, you can kind of see here why you need the little plastic tab that actually holds the pin in from coming out by itself. These have a really clear reading gauge. Anytime that I get in the razor, I can look real quick, make sure that I have fire extinguishers. If you don't have a fire extinguisher on your side-by-side, please purchase one. It doesn't take a whole lot to cause a fire in one of these. Some of the things I have seen happen, not fuel related. There's a lot of fires that are caused because people put fuel in the back and they get it too close to a heat source, and it actually swells up your tank and actually forces fuel out. It's not that the gas can would naturally leak, but it can't do anything other than basically pressurize up and leak out. When you put it in the bed of one of these razors or other side-by-sides, the bed gets a little hotter than everything else around it. And if you have a fuel tank directly in the bed, it's going to heat up. And that's not exclusive to fuel tanks. It also applies to chainsaws. If you put your chainsaw on the back of the bed, you drive for a ways, heats up the chainsaw. Eventually the heat will cause the tank to actually relieve pressure, and when it does, the gasoline goes in the back of the bed, goes down through one of the holes, hits a muffler or an heat shield, and ignites. And there you have, one, you have a fire, and two, you have exposed fuel all the way up to a bigger fuel source, and it ends up being a bigger fire. Now, excluding that, I've seen things, especially I know on the old 800 razors, they're really bad to collect leaves around the exhaust, and a lot of times that would, enough leaves would get packed in there where it would actually cause a fire. Stuff happens, be prepared. This can save your ride, property, etc. So if you don't have a fire extinguisher and you have a side-by-side, invest a little bit of money to get one, even if you just kind of have one, in a cubby or something. I know a lot of guys run like a really small, like a Ski-Doo style fire extinguisher up in the glove box. But ideally, if you have two fire extinguishers, one on each side, where passenger or driver can just get out and grab an extinguisher. More than likely, I know me, I'm pretty particular about my stuff. I don't expect that I will have a fire, but I have run across a lot of fires of other people. And the last thing you want to do is just, pull up and basically everybody's helpless. There's no way to extinguish a fire. This gives you a peace of mind. And this is the lower mount. I'll just let you take a look at the machining there. It's really well done. The anodized coating is well done as well. It's nice even coat. It's kind of a flat, maybe a matte black. And it comes with all the hardware. This is how it came out of the box. So pretty much all you have to do is just slide this on the extinguisher. I'm just going to take a look over here at my other one and get this lined up. And we'll put our two top hoops around the extinguisher. And once I get the hoops on, I'll go back over to the other extinguisher and set them at the same height. I guess I'll let you look at this. These are just stainless steel cap screws. It's still a nice touch. If you have ever worked with like a black oxide cap screw and mixed mud and water with that pretty much equals rust. So anytime that you're using, hardware from a MasterCard or something like that on a razor, try to get like a stainless or some kind of something that has a lot of anti-corrosion properties. Otherwise, it'll just kind of rust in the hole, and it'll get over everything and just be a problem. And that's speaking from experience. And for now, I'm just going to set this up here so I don't have to hold as many pieces. And the pin will go through either side, which is kind of nice. In my razor, I have a left-hand, right-hand arrangement. So, I mean, your passenger pin location is going to be on a different side. I know a lot of the designs only, they have a handle or a push plunger that will only go with one side. Some of them you can put on either, but a lot of them are only single-sided. So keep that in mind if you're if you're planning on installing 2 units that you'll have to deal with, how do I get a pin out? It would be a lot harder if this pin were on this back side to get this out. Being able to put it on either side, you know, it basically provides uniformity. If I have a passenger getting in the RZR, it's really easy to show them how to get either extinguisher out without any issues. And this fit of the fire extinguisher, I'm really amazed how it's basically just as tight and as accurate as the roll bar mount. A little bit harder to do when you can't see the other side. I think I've got it pretty close. Okay, I'm just going to kind of eyeball where this needs to go. That should be pretty close. Okay, so I've got about an 1/8 inch of a gap. So this is going to hold on to the fire extinguisher really tight, and you know, still not be the point to where we have like a big huge gap here that's filling up with dirt or what have you. That's another thing that I'll say is, you know, make sure that you clean this area and always check your outlets. I have grabbed a fire extinguisher once that was plugged up basically with mud. It did eventually come out, but it affected the fire extinguisher's ability to put out a fire. Luckily it wasn't a fire that was actually on the RZR, it was off of the RZR, just on the ground, that needed to be put out. Just to kind of give you a look there how well the fit is on that. That's pretty good. I mean, that's quality machining. Especially at, you know, at this price point. I mean, there's no way for $100 that I could machine this myself, unless I really ramped up operations for production. But definitely a nice part for the price. And in my opinion, this is also not just the cheapest, it's also one of the best options out there, because it meets all my criteria. And my criteria being, I need a really solid mount to the roll bar, I want a really solid mount to the fire extinguisher, I don't really want to use pipe clamps, and the ambidextrous pin release, and no rattles. And this meets all that criteria. Okay, we should be good. I'll pull this off to make it a little easier to tighten up these brackets on the roll bar. You really don't want to super duper tighten these. You just want them, you know, fairly snug. You are threading into aluminum. I'll just mention this. I'm not going to do this on this one because I don't really plan on taking it back off. But on that one over there, I did apply a little bit of anti-seize. Anytime you have two, especially if you have two dissimilar metals, anti-seize is the best thing in the world. You always want to use it when you can on stuff like this. It'll allow you to get it off a lot easier. It'll prevent galling. If you've ever backed off a nut or a screw and actually stripped out the threads while it was on the bolt, that can actually occur if you don't use, you know, appropriate anti-seize. So that's really securely mounted. While I've got this off, I'm just going to let you kind of take a look. And I'm going to make a couple of adjustments to this just to even out my gaps. And it doesn't have to be perfect, it just needs to be close, I mean, as far as gaps go. Okay, so there's our finished mount. So basically we've got cap screws and aluminum rings holding it with this aluminum backbone. These are bolted on. So there's basically a cap screw that goes through this into through the ring into the backbone here. So you can kind of see there how it works, and this is what the pin sits on. I'm just going to slide it in. We're going to do a quick test fit. I'm going to do a quick demonstration of actually getting it deployed. So now the rubber piece is engaged, and you really have to push hard on this to get, to compress that rubber before any metal contacts. This is kind of, basically that's the only noise that it can make, and it generally doesn't make any noise when you're riding. And basically that's because it's sitting on this steel pin. It's pretty much free floating except for side load, with the exception of this rubber, that rubber piece that I showed you before. It's sticking up a little bit further than the metal around it. So this whole backbone is basically resting on that piece of rubber. Okay, that's mounted. That is not going anywhere. I'm shaking the entire razor. It's not deflecting, moving, bending, or any of that kind of thing. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to really make sure that I didn't have any hits. So basically that fire extinguisher is actually behind this plane. So if a branch comes along, it's actually going to go around the fire extinguisher. It probably is almost an inch behind the edge of this roll bar, leading roll bar. So the odds of it catching something are pretty diminished, and if it did, it would probably be a really small branch and snap off. These fire extinguishers are fairly robust. This is all a steel valve style fire extinguisher. This is not like a plastic top fire extinguisher. This is all metal. One thing that I have noticed when I installed it is this does make some noise when you're holding it like this, but I've never actually heard it on the razor, even banging around. And that may be, engine noise may cover it up, but I don't hear it. If you did have a problem, all you got to really do is just stuff a piece of foam or something underneath this pin here, and have this push up all the time. It won't hurt the fire extinguisher. This is loose, so basically it's pushing down on a plunger in the fire extinguisher. So as long as you put something there that will come out easy or break or mash, it won't be a problem. So fire extinguisher's on, and to basically deploy it, when you just pull a pin, it's actually going to fall back and you pick up. This works like the other side does. Unless you pull up on it, the fire extinguisher will actually stay there. You have to basically lift it about 3/8 of an inch to get the fire extinguisher up and out of its mount. And it does take a little bit of practice. This is a pretty tight fit. I've done it several times, but I know the first couple of times I did it, if you come in and you got cant to it or something like that, it's not going to go in the mount. So it's pretty much got to be straight on to get it in the mount. Not that that's something you would do a whole lot. It's just a little unnerving. If you have trouble getting it in, a lot of times you think you're going to have trouble getting it out, but that's not the case. It just needs to be straight when you put it in. And to get the pin back in, you do have to apply a little bit of force on the fire extinguisher mount to compress that rubber button that sticks in the base, and that's what's preventing a rattle. So you want to make sure that you do that. And again, make sure your pin seating. These pins are standard pins. There's probably a million other options, but the ones that they send are really good. They have a spring-loaded ball bearing which holds this in. There's the plunger style. I had one that's this diameter, and approximately it's a little bit longer than what you need from like paintball. That has the push button in the center. Those work as well. They've left enough clearance here to use one of those if that's what you prefer. I kind of like this method. This doesn't require a lot of fine motor skills, and in any stressful situation, your fine motor skills may not be there for you. So this will work out a lot better for most people. Okay, that's pretty much the install of the fire extinguisher. A couple neat things happen on the channel. I appreciate all the new subscriptions. I've got a lot of content for the spring and summer, especially in the machining stuff that I have planned. The razor is pretty much done. I plan on being at Windrock at the end of February. If you're interested in coming to ride, it's probably only going to be a day, but if you have free time at the end of February or close to the end of February, shoot me a line or something. We'll try to come up on the same day and and get some riding in. I know the one day that we're looking at doing, it's planning on raining, and I'm probably going to go anyway. It doesn't look like anything serious. But if you plan on riding then, or around in the area, make sure you let me know, and I'll try to get times and days when I'm going to be up there. It's probably going to be for a day ride. But the biggest thing on the RZR is done, and that was the springs for this year. Pretty much the rest of the season is going to be riding and any repairs, if anything. And that's the way I hope to keep it. One other thing I wanted to mention, I did get this the other day, and it's kind of a double recommendation. I saw these, I think, posted on Facebook, and then I noticed that Polaris actually sells them. On my RZR, I've never had an issue. I've had issues with like Rangers and 6x6s, you know, pulling a valve stem out. Well, apparently, I guess Colby Valve, I'll put a link to this on Amazon. This is where I got it. They make an emergency valve kit. I've got a tool in the RZR to pull a valve stem out. The problem is you have to unmount the tower to actually get a valve stem in. And this will get you at least back to maybe some more tools. And basically the way these work is you basically stick them in and twist. They're relatively long, but they're really well made. They're machine parts. And they basically have a seal, so when you stick them in and twist them, they basically expand and lock in, and they'll do that from the front side of the rim, which means you don't need to unmount the tire. And as what I understand, these are reusable. So I got a pack of 2, throw it in the emergency pack in the back of the RZR, and hopefully if I ever run into that, or somebody, you know, riding with me runs into that, we'll have a quick solution to, you know, to continue the ride, or at least get back to the camper toy hauler. And toy hauler, if I make it back to the toy hauler, I have a debeating tool, you know, and tire spoons to actually get the tire off, and more valve stems. That's not really possible out in the trail, although you can, you know, get another RZR and drive up on the tire and debeat it, and use pry bars or whatever else to get the tire off. But that's not an ideal thing. This will save that from having to happen, I hope, and get us riding back quicker, and in worst case scenario, it might get us home one day. So that's basically it for this video. Again, thanks for the subscriptions. You know, please like and subscribe. I know that I've covered a lot of content. Basically, I'm doing electronics, VMC. I've heard a couple of comments that, you know, I should do more focused channel, and I'll be honest with you, that's probably not going to happen. Pretty much anything that I come up to that's interesting that I feel like filming, I'm going to film it and put it on YouTube. And that includes the RZR stuff, the machining stuff. The machining stuff slowed during the winter, mainly because, you know, the shop requires heat. I do keep it warm enough to keep all the equipment good, but to heat it up to a comfortable temperature to come down here and work, especially with tolerance work, it isn't worth it, especially when it's, you know, 10 degrees outside. I do have some more electronics projects coming up. I've been working on some commercial stuff related to that multiplexer that I did last year, and that's pretty much coming to a head. I mean, it's been produced, and I've made a couple of them this winter, and not spending as much time on it. I'm still making them, but I'm not having to do any design. The design's done. I think today I want to give a shout out to Hackaday. I was on Hackaday for the STM8. If you haven't seen that video, that's a microcontroller video. In a broader scope, it's actually what I did software-wise for the controller that's in this RZR, and many other things. And it also ties into the big commercial design that I did, which won't be on YouTube, but if you're interested, you know, send me a message or something, and I'll try to send you some photos or something of it. But basically, it's a 16 output version of that 4 output version for agricultural equipment. Anyway, I hope you like the videos. If you have any questions, shoot me a line, and we'll see you on the next one. I think more than likely the next one may be maybe a machining video, or it may be the actual trip to Windrock at the end of this month. But we'll see. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.